Hello, my spooky friends. It is Stacy. Are you looking to venture into special effects makeup and you don't know where to start? You don't want to spend a lot of money, or are you just looking to kick it up in your Halloween and your cosplay game? This is the tutorial that you need. I'm going to show you several different stages of bruising so you can get a realistic look and how to save yourself money by using only eyeshadow. I have several tips and hacks with eyeshadow. So if you want to save some time and money, let's just go ahead and get into the tutorial and I'll see you there. So here are the 4 eyeshadow palettes that I'm using today. All these come from ColourPop. They are 9-pan palettes that have shimmers as well as mattes, but they run about $12 on the ColourPop website, but you do not need to use these. Go to the dollar store, Dollar Tree. They have great makeup, and pick out something that has a little bit of everything to save yourself some money. But this is what I've been using for a while, and I'm trying to use these up. So this is the Main Squeeze palette from ColourPop. This other one is the Blue Moon palette. It's My Pleasure, and it's a Ray of Sunshine. Now, when you're doing bruising, you need to stick to the matte colors only. Now, when it comes to bruising, the first thing you need to take in consideration is the type of bruising that you want. And so, for the sake of explaining the transitions and the phases of bruising, I'm just going to go in with the most popular, the black and bruised eyeball. So, it is a injury to the face, and what happens in order for the body to protect itself and several different things around the eye. There are the orbital bone and the socket of the eye, which allows blood to pool. So what comes to the surface is going to settle in these areas, and depending on the actual injury is how it's going to look. But this is one of the first stages, and it is a fresh injury, and I'm going in with the ColourPop palette, and you can see that I've used this one quite a bit because it is the darkest of the color, but it still represents flesh blood because the other ones have a little bit more orange in them. I tend to stick with as true to red as I can get it. And you can use the same brush if that's something that you need. So I'm going to go in where I think the red and the irritation would show up the most if somebody was to hit you in the eye. And you don't have to use a whole lot of product. Just keep moving it around in the areas that you want to have it show up. Now, so when you have a shadow in the eye and around the orbital socket, this is what gives it the more saturated look, because it settles into those areas that already have shadow from the bridge of the nose. So you can see how it looks darker when the bridge of the nose comes in versus when the light hits it just right. But also it's still darker. I used the same amount of eyeshadow. You see that my brush went very small and swift over that area, but because this has sunken in shadows and it concaves, you're going to get something a little bit darker. I think this is a good one to use if you eyeshadows do a lot of stuff. They blend out a lot of things that you might not even consider to do, but once you have an unblended line, you see it and it's really easy, and you can tap it in and blot with your finger. You do not need a brush to do everything, a brush to apply it in an initial spot, and you can use a finger. So that is the first stage of the bruised eye. That is fresh blood coming to the surface, and it will begin to pool. The next color I'm going to use is this blue in the ColourPop palette. And usually blue starts to show up because the blood starts to lose oxygen. And so it's around about day 2 that blue actually shows up, but it also depends on the severity. So things are going to start to look a bit more dramatic when you start to add different colors. And don't be afraid to go over some of the areas that you've already have the red, because you want it to be realistic, because blood pools and runs up under the skin. It will fall into the deepest crevices, and it will start to get thinner once it goes over a bone area, such as over the brow bone. It will start to thin out, and over this bone from the eye socket. So I just like to carry stuff over and see how it looks here. Here's a line I kind of don't like, and finger. There we go. So keep in mind to look at reference photos of real actual injuries and not just makeup that has done an injury, because that's going to give you your best reference. That's what I do. And so about 3 days we go into the yellowish greenish, and what happens is the hemoglobin in the eye starts to break down. The body starts to break this down. And so what I do is I go in with yellow, remembering everything needs to be an all matte, and this is a darker, grungier yellow. And anywhere that I think that blood would run and initially start to get there, it usually shows up on the outer edges, indicating that the thinnest breakdown of the hemoglobin starts. Of course, when the process starts, you can see it break down the thinner lines that bleed versus the pulling. So I would keep my yellow to the outer edge and around the other colors. Now, I'm just going to go back and forth with the colors and play with them, because it always makes for a better look to mix. And I just absolutely love eyeshadow to do some of the stuff. This is just proof that you do not need those alcohol paints. And I always like my products, if I buy an eyeshadow palette, I want it to have a multiple use. So you can see that I pick up eyeshadow palettes that are red, that have orange tones and shimmers, and ColourPop's good for that in their 9 pans. They run sales all the time. This is not a sales pitch, I'm sorry, but it's just one of the reasons why I enjoy using them often, because of the high pigment. And if you have an eyeshadow palette that's not very high pigmented, continue to just layer. So a little bit more red, tap it around the bruising to make it look brown, so yellow and brown kind of show up around the other day. So there's also another color that I use, and I use purple. This is from the ColourPop palette, and I use purple sparingly and in certain places, deep in. I'm going to buff it out with some red. So adding purple adds more dimension, and it's a good color to have. And let's just say that you're looking to save even more money. You do not want to pick up an additional purple. Here's what you do, and check this out. You just mix them. Take these two colors, take red and take blue, and create yourself a purple until you get a color that you like. So I'm going to hold these up like this. I'm going to go into, I'm just going to use a very clean brush so you can see what I'm talking about. Here we have a red, and we have the blue. Red and blue, and I test it on my hand. And there is your purple. So I'm going to take what's on this brush and show you purple. There's no rule. What you want is to get the color. So mix them, mix and match. You do not have to buy all 4 eyeshadow palettes, but if you want to play with different styles of injury and in different places, and just constantly evolve in how to use eyeshadow for something like bruising, I would pick up all 4 just to play around with it. Because if you're doing a special effects makeup look where someone has had extreme trauma, you might want to use just purple and black. That's also a color that shows up in bruising. But just keep in mind, it's the type of bruising, where it's at, how it's pulling and collecting up under the skin, and how old it is in the injury. And that will dictate the type of bruised eye that you want to create. Also, another thing that tops it off, and I think it carries it to another level, is if you have eyeshadow and you want to keep this in place, because eyeshadow does kind of fade off a little bit. The Maybelline Lasting Fix Spray is just a setting spray, and it sets in a matte finish, and it's 16-hour wear. So you could go to that costume party or that Comic-Con event and you can use this. I'm not using it right now today because I'm about to film another look, and this is one that's tried and true, and it's worth the price tag. It's got a great spray on it, so when it sprays, it goes out very wide, and it does last 16 hours. This is a staple I have all the time and I keep with me, so that will keep you from having to buy specialty paints and creams. And you also have eyeshadows that you can use for glamour looks, everyday looks, and special effects makeup. But if you've ever heard someone go, they had quite a shiner on them, it's an old saying, and the reason why they do this, and this is going to kick it up another level, is to take some Vaseline and go into the darkest parts of this eye and just tap in a little Vaseline to give it that shiner look. So and it also helps blend other colors. If you're in a rush, you're using your brushes, you see a line, Vaseline, and tap it. But this right here is what's going to sell that extreme injury and eye look. You see how it shines in with the lights, and it just brings it to another level. So that is how to create bruising using only eyeshadow. I hope that saves you a lot of money, because it's still a technique that I like to use. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you for hanging out with me today, and I hope you like the way things are being set up. I'm trying to do a little bit more in this space because it's so pretty and I love it, and I love all my little horror collections and everything. And I just but sometimes I got so much stuff when I'm doing specific looks that I had to have a bigger table, which I don't have, and that's why you see me with just a solid background behind me. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you're going to use this technique for, and if you have some tips for everyone else, just comment and let us know where you're buying some really good, affordable makeup, because we all can use some help and some relief. So I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you again next time. Bye.